So look with me at the branch that God has placed upon my heart to share with us today. It's coming up on the screen, I'm trusting. Coming up on the screen now, I believe to see, right? Wrestling, the blessing of surrender. You should know exactly where I'm going with this. We're going to be talking about wrestling, and I'm going to tell you up front, you're wrestling, contending for vision and blessing. And the blessing that I want us to receive by God's grace is the blessing of surrender, blessing of yielding. So let's go into it and see what God will say to us. So let's go to Genesis 32, and we want to read these words of life again. I know you would have read them, but let's read them again. So we're breaking into the portion, and we're reading this. He took them and sent them across the stream. That's our father Yaakov. Then sent his possessions across. And Yaakov was left alone. Left alone. Not good that man be alone, but here God is having him alone because God is about to do something that is mysterious and awesome. Then some man wrestled with him until daybreak. It's a long wrestling match. When he saw that he did not defeat Yaakov, he struck Yaakov, hip socket, so that his hip was dislocated while wrestling him. Notice, wounded, but still wrestling. The man said, "Let me go, because it's daybreak." But Yaakov replied, "I won't let you go unless you bless." The man asked, "What is your name?" And he answered, "Yaakov." Then the man said, "From now on, you will no longer be called Yaakov, but Israel, because you have shown your strength to both God and men and have prevailed." Continue. Yaakov asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he answered, "Why are you asking about my name?" Seeing it is incomprehensible, and he blessed him. Yaakov called the place Peniel, face of God, because I have seen God face to face, yet my life is spared. Wow. And the sun rose upon him when he went on past Peniel, limping at the hip. What an encounter. This is why to this very day, the people of Israel do not eat the thigh muscle that passes along the hip socket, remove the sciatic nerve, because the man struck Yaakov's hip at its socket. So you would have read that, and we have heard it read this morning again, and now we are hearing these words of life. And you should be sitting there listening, and automatically you should be praying, "Oh Lord, open my eyes, that I may behold the wonderful one and wonderful things from your Torah." Well, let's jump ahead now to the apostolic scriptures. And we want to read out of the book of Mark, the gospel according to Mark. And we want to look at an account in the life of our master. Our sister Stacy would have read the account in Matthew. We're going to look at it in Mark. So he took with him Kepha, and that he there is the ultimate seed of Yaakov, Yeshua, the righteous Messiah. Yaakov and Yochanan. Great distress and anguish came over him. And he said to them, "My heart is so filled with sadness that I could die. Remain here and stay awake." Going on a little further, he fell on the ground and prayed that if possible, the hour might pass from him. "Abba," that is, there, "all things are possible for you. Take this cup away from me. Still, not what I want, but what you want." In other words, not my will, but your will be done. He came and found them sleeping, and he said to Kepha, "Simon, are you asleep? Can't you stay awake 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you will not be put to the test. The spirit indeed is eager, but human nature is weak." Again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And again he came and found them sleeping. Their eyes were so very heavy, and they didn't know what to answer. What do you say in a time like that? The third time he came and said to them, "For now, go on sleeping. Take your rest. That's enough. Dainu. The time has come. Look, the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up. Let's go. Here comes my... So we have these two accounts. And I'm praying by God's gracious help that we see the kesher. There's a line of connection drawn between Genesis 32, what happened with Father Jacob, and our master in the garden. And if you've listened intently, when you read the account of Rav Shaul, you should see a kesher there also. There's a common theme of wrestling. I want us to see that. So let's look at this thing again. Two nights shape the story of redemption. Yabok, you have Jacob wrestling. You have him wrestling. And Jacob prevails. How? By being overcome. To get that, Jacob prevails by being overcome. He's wrestling with this mysterious person. And in Gethsemane, you have Yeshua wrestling to do the Father's will. And he wins by laying down his life. So both involve sweat, both involve anguish, both involve solitude. Both involves a struggle that ends in surrender. Both reveal that the greatest victories are won when strength is laid down, not lifted up. So I want to inspire us to wrestle for the blessings of surrender, the grace of yielding. There's a Christian song that I know we all know, all to Jesus, somebody help me? I what? Surrender. And I want to use that to tell us, all to Yeshua, we surrender. Because this is going to be a message on wrestling. And you may have said, but I've never wrestled physically. Well, if you were in a family, a large family, I'm almost certain you would have some encounters with wrestling. All right? But even so, you know the sport. You can identify with it. And I want to say to us, in Scripture, we have that wrestling that is being played out. So I came across a story that I would like to read for us. It's called The Rope, a story of surrender. Just like our brother said, I know we love stories, so stories help us to understand. So listen to this story, if you will. There was once a young mountain climber named Eliab who trained for years to climb one of the highest peaks in the north. It was his dream, his identity, the one thing he believed would prove that he was strong enough, capable enough, worthy enough. So one winter morning, he got up, went out alone, and he started to proceed. But there was a storm. The storm swallowed the whole mountain, so it made visibility very difficult. But yet he was determined to do this. So as darkness fell, Eliab slipped. The ice gave way beneath him. He plunged off the cliff. You want to climb this mountain, right? Dark. See the parallels. And he slipped. Instinctively, he jammed his axe into the wall. His safety rope snapped tight and stopped his fall. He swung in the freezing night, suspended between sky and the abyss, clinging to the rope with numb fingers. He tried pulling himself up, but the rope was wedged and wouldn't budge. Snow covered his face, his arms trembled, his strength drained away. In the dark, he cried out, "God, help me!" And to his shock, in the howling wind, he heard a whisper. Let go. Let go of the rope. He froze. He shouted back into the night, "I can't let go. I will die if I let go." Again, the whisper, still small voice said, "Trust me, let go." Everything in him fought that thought. He wrestled with fear, pride, and the belief that survival depended on his grip. He argued, he pleaded, he shouted, but the whisper did not shake. At last, when his fingers could no longer feel the rope and he knew he could not hold on any longer, he sobbed, closed his eye, released his grip, he fell. but only for a moment. To his shock, he dropped less than 3 feet, landing on a wide ledge, hidden in the darkness, solid as bedrock beneath him. At that time, he had been wrestling in the air, just one step away from safety. The rope he clung to had kept him suspended in fear. The leap he resisted became his rescue. In letting go, in surrender, he lived. When the morning came, they found him on that ledge. And he told them, I thought my life depended on how tightly I held the rope. But it turned out my life depended on how deeply I trust the voice in the storm. Sometimes, beloved, surrender feels like falling. Sometimes obedience feels like losing control. Sometimes letting go feels like death. But the ledge of God's mercy is always there. And the still small voice says to us, surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving over. It means trusting the one who sees that what you and I cannot. Let's trust like Eliab, the God who created all these things. Now, with that story in your mind, I want you to come back to the text that is before. Yaakov and our master. And I want us to see the kesher, the connection between our rest. You know the text. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but we do wrestle. Whether we like it or not, we are in a wrestling match. And I dare say to us, when we look at this portion and we ask God, give us a share of understanding of this message, you're going to see that God is calling us as disciples of Rabbi Yeshua to be what I call God wrestlers. I didn't say God seekers because we have found him. I didn't say God chasers because he's not running away from us. I'm saying God wrestlers. You and I are called, because these things are written for our learning. So you and I are called now to imitate our father Jacob, to imitate the greater son of Jacob, Yeshua HaMashiach, and engage in wrestling to do Father's will. So consider it as we launch into the deep. Consider the night. Wrestling normally takes place in the night. You think you're sleeping and you're up there with your mind going through all sorts of things because you're wrestling. But God meets us in the dark. I want you to see that. God met Yaakov in the dark. God met with Yeshua in the dark, in the night. And it reminds me of the old film. You know, you need dark for the photography, that film to develop. I believe God uses that darkness to develop our character. So notice Jacob was left alone. But then God said, it is not good that man would be alone. Well, if he says that and Jacob is left alone, you know something unusual is about to take place. God is about to confront us, meet with us. And you got to see it. I'm speaking about Jacob. I'm speaking about Yeshua. I'm speaking about myself. I'm speaking about you. Because you are in the text. Remember, one of the wonderful things in doing Bible study is to wrestle with the text. I love to wrestle with the text. So what do I mean by wrestling with the text? Well, you look up the English. Then you look up the Greek. Then you look up the Hebrew. And you get a message. And then when you get an understanding, you have to wrestle to obey that text. You're engaging with God. Doing Bible study is not passive and casual. Sometimes it's a wrestling match because God shows you something in that word and you know you should do it, but you're wrestling just to do his will. Sometimes his will is quite difficult, quite challenging. But I believe God is calling us to wrestle. So consider Jacob, full of fear. Go back with me to that text in Genesis 32:11. We see in Jacob. Remember his mindset. He's coming and he's running, right? To see it in Genesis 32:11, he took them and sent them across the stream and sent his possessions across. And he's praying. He said, please, rescue me from my brother Esau. Are you see the wrestling? Even before he literally wrestled this mysterious man, he's wrestling in prayer. Have you had a time when you wrestle with God in prayer? If you have not, wait, he's going to bring some situations into your life when you will wrestle with him. But too often, we wrestle against him. That's because our minds are alienated. He's telling us to do something, and we don't want to do it, so we are wrestling against him. But when we humble ourselves and surrender, that's not the end. That's just the beginning now. You begin to wrestle with him for his will to be done in your life. So notice the fears. Do you have fears that you are wrestling with? Think about the fears. He's troubled by Esau. He has to confront his past. Think about it. Then think about our master Yeshua now in the garden. He is left alone. Look with me at Matthew 26. He's in the Garden of Gethsemane. And if you remember, Gethsemane means all pressed. So he's being pressed. Then Yeshua went with his talmidim to a place, the place, Hamakom, called Gat Shemanim, and he said to them, sit here while I go over there and pray. Kind of reminiscent of Abraham saying to his servants, sit here while I go over and worship. Right? You got to see Kesher. He took with him Kepha and Zabdi's 2 sons, and grief and anguish came over him. Are you seeing the parallel with Jacob wrestling? A mysterious man wrestling, grief and anguish came. And he said to them, my heart is so filled with sadness that I could die. Remain here and stay awake with me. He is alone and he's wrestling. Why? Because he's burdened with the sin of the world. He's burdened with the sin of the world. Look with me in the book of Isaiah. Book of Isaiah chapter 53, that text that we know. Isaiah 53, read it into it, we see. After forcible arrest and sentencing, this is speaking about Yeshua to come, he was taken away. And none of his generation protested his being cut off from the land of the living for the crimes of my people. Why is Yeshua wrestling in the Garden of Gethsemane? For his own sins? No, for the sins of his people who deserve the punishment themselves. After this ordeal, he will see satisfaction. After the ordeal of going through Golgotha, by his knowing, pain and sacrifice, my righteous servant makes many righteous. It is for their sins that he suffered. Consider it now. You and I are sinning, and the master is wrestling. Why? Because that little lie, that besetting sin, whatever it is, the master would have wrestled and won the victory so that you and I could overcome and not have that sin have dominion over us. He's wrestling. Therefore he said, I will assign him a share with the great. He will divide the spoil with the mighty, for having exposed himself to death and being counted among the sinners, while actually bearing the sin of many and interceding for the offenders. So Yeshua suffers for his people. You will call his name Yeshua, for he will save his people, the people of Israel, and not only Israel, but the nations of the world. He is wrestling. Are you seeing it now? What Jacob experienced is just a little type of what was happening in the Garden of Gethsemane. You've got to see the kesher, and you've got to see the beauty between both of them. How Yaakov came to that place of surrender. How our master came to the place of surrender. And you've got to see the blessing that you and I want to contend for is that blessing of surrender. What is the master about to face? Hebrews chapter 12. He's about to face the execution stage. The writer of the book of Hebrews says, look away. Look away from all the other heroes of the faith. Look away from Moses and Joshua. Look away from them and look to the initiator and completer of that trust in Yeshua, who, in exchange for obtaining the glory set before him, endured. He had to wrestle. God, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not what I want, but what you want. I will endure execution on a stake as a criminal. The Son of Man who did no wrong. Suffering as a criminal. And you identify with being falsely accused? This is our pattern. Scorning the shame, sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. So he's wrestling because he knows what is coming. So I ask us, what fears are you wrestling with? What insecurities, what troubles you? What unresolved issues in your family life, in your life that you have not dealt with? God will bring you and I to that place where he will wrestle with us concerning what he wants us to do in that particular situation. So, it's a wrestling. So I say to us again, all to Yeshua be said. Take my life and let it be. I know you want me to forgive, but oh God, it's so hard. Sometimes I see myself in a tag team match with God. It's God and I wrestling against my flesh. I want you to get that imagery in your mind. God and I, redeemed in Messiah, wrestling against my flesh. And the Spirit of the Lord has said to me, step aside, flesh. This is the Spirit talking. You have no dominion. He has wrestled and he is broken, but he's not going to let go because God is with him. I find that victory would come to us as we persevere until the end. Don't give up. Don't give in. Jacob is wounded and he still wrestles. That's something powerful that God would want us to see. So, we need to wrestle here at CMY. In praying, it's a wrestling. Wrestle for the whole body of Messiah. Wrestle. Pray. Wrestle for the Messianic movement. Wrestle for the people of Israel to know that Yeshua is the Messiah. They too are wrestling with this mysterious figure. I read a book called God of Israel and Christian Theology, and the writer was saying that Christian theology is wrestling with the God of Israel. They're wrestling because they're trying to do away with Israel but want God. No! Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. And Christian theology has to wrestle with the fact that God has not broken his covenant, irrevocable covenant with Israel. And it's a wrestling. And I believe there's much humbling coming. I think it's with wisdom that God touched Yaakov at the time. It's one of the strongest places, and some of us are too strong. We need to be touched by God, right? But I want us to see Jacob struggles against God. Yeshua struggles with God, but he refuses to quit. Jacob came to that place. You've got to see it because he's just an imperfect mirror of Yeshua. But I want you to see, even in the brokenness of Jacob, look at the messianic implication of being wounded and not letting go. Have you been insulted? Has your friends betrayed you and abandoned you? You're wrestling. Would you give up the fight? No, our father Jacob says, you touched me, but I'm not letting go, you know. The blessing is not that you overcome me, but I surrender myself to you. Take my life, Lord, and let it be consecrated all for you. This is the beginning of surrender, the grace of yielding. There's an expression called the dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul. If you haven't reached there yet, it is coming. It's part of a curriculum. It is coming. Last night after dinner, I went and I was rehearsing the message, asking God to speak to me. And I decided to just take a little nap. When I got back up, I slept for an hour. I got up at 12 o'clock, brethren. And I said, okay, I'm up. I should go back to sleep now. And sleep vanished. Whole night, your rabbi has been up. And I said, Lord, why have you moved sleep from my eyelids? Don't cover the course. You got to walk through the fire of your own obedience. I will not let you tell my people anything that you're not prepared to do. So whole night I'm up wrestling with God for his will to be done in my life and the life of those who listen to me. Wrestling, because I know how difficult it is to do the will of God. I see it in my own brokenness, and I know it takes intercession. Crying out to God that our mind will be broken open. I believe God doesn't want to break us down. He wants to break us open. We will be broken and contrite and do the will of God. But wrestling, that God's people will surrender and say, not my will, but your will be done. There's a text in Colossians I want us to see. It's in Colossians, I believe, 4 verse 12. I wanted to get the example of this man. I always pray for such a person to be in the congregation. Colossians 4 verse 12. Epaphras sends greetings. Normal thing, right? Small talk. He is one of you, those of your number, a slave, a bond slave, a love slave of Messiah Yeshua, who, watch what he is noted for, always agonizes in his prayer on your behalf. You seen the wrestling? Prayed. What is he prayed? That you may stand firm, not fickle, not giving up when this happens or this doesn't happen. You stand firm. You stand, you withstand, and you remain standing. Mature, not childish, but childlike. Fully confident as you devote yourself completely to God's will. Oh, that God would raise up such persons of our number who would give themselves no sleep because you're going to agonize that God's will be done in the life of this person. You think it's coming just so? No, it's at a cost. That's why you got to be mature in God to understand. This is not plain synagogue. This is real, beloved. If you didn't get the memo, this is real. The wrestling is real. And it's going to cost our lives. And God is calling us to wrestle and say, God, your will be done. So, soldier of the execution stake, keep watch. I say to you, I say to myself, keep watch, because the souls of men are in the balance. And you need to wrestle. God, that sister is going through this situation now. I'm going to stay and wrestle. Are you understanding? This person needs a breakthrough, need a financial breakthrough, need some situation in their family. I'm going to stay up and pray the same thing like Yeshua over and over again. Can you do that for at least 1 hour? You try that. 1 hour praying the same prayer. 1 hour praying, God, let your will be done in my brother. Let your will be done in my sister. 1 hour, nothing more. That's what you're praying. God, I want your will to be done. And all hell will come against you. Because you wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. So who is Jacob wrestling with? His conscience? Is he wrestling with a man? Is it an angel? Is it pre-incarnate Yeshua? Is it the angel of Esau? Who is he wrestling with? It's mysterious. It's a man. And God says, that's what I want among my people. I want you to notice something. It says a man wrestle him. It's as if God picks the fight. God is a loving God, but sometimes he picks a fight with us. The good fight of faith. Because he knows what he wants to do in our hearts. So let's look at Hosea and see what is written about our father Jacob. In the book of Hosea chapter 12. In the womb, he took his brother by the heel. That's wrestling inside. and in his what? Maturity. So if you're going to wrestle, you've got to be mature. It is the mature person who knows their master, who knows his will, that will contend with him for the will of others. Those who don't have that kindred spirit would pray for 5 minutes and go and sleep. Don't you not watch 1 hour? Why do you think it's so difficult to have many people at a prayer meeting? Why do you think? Because it's as if the enemy says, listen, fight only with them when they start to pray. Put excuses in their mind so they don't want to pray. Make it difficult for them. And the faint-hearted, the immature would give up. But the mature ones would contend. Contend for vision and blessing. All to Yeshua we surrender. Verse 4. Yes, he wrestled with the angel. Was it a man or an angel? I tell you, it's mysterious. And prevailed. How did he prevail? Did he overcome the angel or did the angel overcome him? You see, prayer is not overcoming the reluctance of God. It is coming into alignment with his will. And you're daring all hell to prevent his will being done. But I want you to see the master in the garden of Gethsemane. He's in the praying field of Gethsemane, and he sends one shot that is heard around the world. Not my will, but your will be done. And every day I challenge us to pray that prayer. Let your will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Heaven is willing, and he needs a son or daughter who is willing for that will to be done in a particular situation. And if you don't wrestle, the enemy will overcome. But I want us to see that God is calling us to wrestle. Oh my God, help us to see that, Father. This is the fact. God confronts us, not to break us down, but to break us open. There are things that God wants to release, wants us to release. Think about Father Abraham. Take your son, your only son. What is your son today that God is telling you to give me? And you're wrestling to keep him. Give me your health. You're wrestling. Give me your wealth. You're wrestling. Give me your love. You're wrestling. Now, you see what I'm saying? What is your Isaac that you love so much that you wouldn't let go? That's where you're wrestling. God is saying, give it up. Look what he said in John chapter 12. In John chapter 12, the account of our master wrestling again. He says, yes, indeed, I tell you that unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it stays just a grain. But if it dies, it produces a big harvest. You notice you have to let go. You notice you have to die. You notice you have to wrestle. Not my will, but your will be done. Imagine that you're looking at your sister. Look her in the eye and says, not my will, but your will be done. Oh God, in the life of my sister, in the life of my brother, all to Yeshua we surrender. Take my life and let it be. I give you my health, I give you my wealth, I give you my family. I love you more than them. I give you everything. Take it, Lord. You are all that I need. Some of us haven't come to that place yet. So we wrestle. And God will not let you go until you bless him. That he knows what's right in putting you through this trial. He knows exactly what you need. A health challenge, that would be touching the hip. A financial challenge, that's what you need. You see, God knows exactly what we have need of before we ask him. But he brings us to that place, dark and alone. And you got to be at that place. You call out for help, and there's no one there to help you. You're alone with God. But you're never alone because the Father is always with you. You cry out, God, not my will, but your will be done. So let God bring you to that place of wrestling. It's not accidental, it's purposeful. Come to that place of wrestling where God will bring you through. That place of surrender. Again, the blessing of saying, not my will, but your will be done. There's a blessing hidden inside the blow. Jacob blessed only after he was wounded. Strength collapses. I want you to see it. As I said, some of us are too strong. Look at this text in Deuteronomy 32. God is saying, my people Israel, you are too strong. Yes, Adonai will judge his people, taking pity on his servants when he sees that their strength is God. God will bring Israel to that place where her strength is God. No Iron Dome, no laser beam, no international favor. Strength gone. And when he sees that, he will cry out, Baruch haba. I will not let you go. Why do you think he called us a stubborn people? On the negative side, we are stubborn. But on the positive side, we will not let go. Though you slay us, yet will we trust you. To whom else shall we go? We love you. We know that you are the one true living God. So though you cause us to decrease, we still will not let go. That's why even today, there are parts of the beef we would not eat because we remember that heavenly encounter. And we limp. We go through life limping, broken. But God is with us. So God breaks our self-reliance, breaks our self-sufficiency. And we begin to see, oh, worm Jacob. Look with me at Isaiah 44, verse 2. Look at what the prophets are saying. Picking up the same talk. He says, thus Adonai, who made you, formed you in the womb, just like Jacob, I will help you. Don't be afraid. Yaakov, my servant. Yeshurun, that's the affectionate term, the ideal Israel. I'm going to change your name from Jacob to Israel. I'm going to change your name from Israel to Yeshurun. You will be the character and light of God that I've called you to be. But it's going to come at a cost, Israel. It's going to come at a cost. So left alone, he limps into the future. He meets his brother limping. Yeshua rises to go do the will of the Father. You see, I believe surrender releases a strength that striving cannot. When Yeshua said, not my will, but your will be done. The text says there came an angel that strengthened him. God said to Peter, he said, listen, I know you're going to forsake me and deny me. The enemy wants to sift you. But I'm praying for you. I am interceding for you, Peter. You see the connection? I'm interceding for you that your imuna, your faith, will not fail. I believe and thank God for those who have been interceding for us. Because I know there are times when my faith fails and somehow I feel wonderfully assisted as if somebody just whispered a prayer. God, let your will be done in the life of Rabbi. I don't know where the second strength comes from, but I understand spiritual activity, that prayer is being wrought. And I thank God for you. And I pray, God, you and I would be found faithful. And pray for the intercession for Israel. So we are strengthened. Look with me at 2 Corinthians 4, verse 6. Yeshua is speaking, and he says, for it is God who once said, let light shine out of darkness. Where was Jacob? In the dark. Where was Yeshua? In the dark. Let light shine out of darkness. You see how he's using Genesis 1 in a whole new way. Who has made his light shine in our hearts, the light of the knowledge of God's glory shining in the face of Messiah Yeshua. I have seen God face to face, and I have lived. To see your face is to see the face of God. Behind the very people that you may dislike and hate is God looking at you and saying, you are despising my children, you are despising me. How can you hide your face from my children? You're hiding your face from me. So notice how Jacob had to go through a struggling. Broken self-reliance, self-sufficiency, he limps to meet his brother. Picture it. Picture it. He's limping to meet his brother. And he bows 7 times. He said, my brother Esau. My Lord Esau, he calls him. That's the encounter that God, I believe, wants you and I to have. Jacob gets a new name, and he gets that name by yielding, not by overcoming. Israel would get her new name when she yields to the God. When he sees that her strength is gone, he will step in and bless her. But she has kept struggling and fighting even to daybreak. You and I should learn a lesson. Don't let go. Sister Deity, don't let go. Those of us who are going through health challenges, don't let go. You're wounded. You're broken. But you don't let go. You persevere until the end. Don't let go. In Genesis chapter 30, verse 8, I found an interesting question that I want to make note to us. Rachel said, I have wrestled mightily with my sister and won, and call him Naphtali, my wrestler. You know the story, right? She said, I'm wrestling. You see where you're going? You're wrestling with my sister. He's wrestling. And then we want to go into the other account in verse 14. She said, during the wheat harvest season, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrakes so that I can be fertile. Implication, verse 15. She answered, isn't it enough that you have taken away my husband? Remember the wrestling? Do you have to take my son's mandrake too? Rachel said, very well. I want you to see the surrender. No more wrestling. Very well. In exchange for your son mandrakes, sleep with him tonight. You read that and you think, what's happening here? You've got to see the beauty of the matriarch. You've got to see how this sister recognized that her sister would have been wounded. You've got to see how she put aside sibling rivalry. You've got to see the greatness of our mother in saying, I see. Would you continue struggling with your sister? Is there a sister in Shul that you go and get along with? Look at Rachel and Leah. And come to that place where you understand why this person is acting this way. And instead of dealing with them from an earthly perspective, you see the face of it. And you treat that person differently. We tend to have a perspective of earth looking towards heaven. God wants us to have a perspective of heaven looking towards earth. We are seated in heavenly places. Look down and see what God is doing in the life of this brother or sister and wrestle so that God's will be done. Be it unto you according to his will. And I believe that's what God is wanting us to see. Wrestle. Jacob is going to meet his brother and he's wondering, is he coming to take me out? This thought is lingering. He said he will kill me when my father dies. 20 years later, he's still wrestling with that thought. And you know what he did to try and save his family? And you saw how God touched the heart of Esau. Because God said a promise to Esau, which is a blessing. He said, listen, I'm not giving you that blessing that I give Jacob. But you would be blessed when you loose yourself of Jacob's hold on you. That's how, what kind of blessing is that? But that's a wonderful blessing. Do you see the blessing? When you break Jacob's hold on you, you will be blessed. God was telling Esau, stop harboring bitterness and holding grudge against Jacob. If you do that, He will always control you. But when you come to that place, Esau, of surrender, then you could be reconciled to Jacob. Because you have broken his hold of unforgiveness and bitterness against you. Oh my God. Some of us need to come to that place. Esau have I loved. Did I say it right? The scripture said, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. I say to us, Esau have I loved. God loves Esau also. And he wants Esau to lose himself of being controlled by the circumstances of people. So this sister doesn't smile at you. You would destroy your whole Shabbat because this sister is going through whatever she's going through and she doesn't smile? Or would you look beyond and see the face of her, struggling to make that frown into a smile? And you wrestle with God for that sister to smile. Are you understanding what I'm saying by God's grace? You've got to wrestle for one another and with one another. As I close, I want to bring up this text, Jude chapter 3. I believe there's a wrestling that is taking place also. The book of Jude, chapter 3. Dear friends, I was busily at work writing to you about the salvation we share when I found it necessary to write, urging you to keep contending earnestly for the faith which was once and for all passed on to God's people. I believe that we are in a season of wrestling, contending for the faith. For 2,000 years, we had Judaism and Christianity separate as it is. We have the atrocious accounts of church fathers. They did some good, but they did some much evil. And there's a separation. But it involved with Jewish-Christian relations, and I know that there's trying to be reconciling. There's trying to be an understanding. Up to yesterday, their Adventist pastor sent me a quote from the Pope where he said he's about to do something that will change the course of history forever in how the Catholic Church relates to Jews. They're trying to reconcile. It's happening, brethren. But I want you to see that God is doing something new. In the book of Acts, I want us to see this. Acts chapter 21. I believe that the Messianic movement, Messianic Jewish movement, is something ancient and new. It has an ancient foundation, but it's a modern movement. All right? Look at this. After greeting them, Shaul described in detail each of the things God had done among the Gentiles through his efforts. Remember, he was the apostle to the Gentiles. On hearing it, they praised God, but they also said to him, you see, brother, how many tens of thousands of believers there are among the Judeans, among the Jewish people, and they are all zealous for the Torah. Now, this text is there for us. Just go back to that text, please. This text has been there all along. Yet somehow, for 2,000 years, Christendom says, Jewish people, when you believe in Yeshua, you stop being Jew. But here we have brothers who believed. What did they believe? That Yeshua is the Messiah. And did they abandon Torah? No, they were zealous for the Torah. So where is the testimony of a people who remains Jewish and are zealous for the Torah? Where is that? We haven't seen that for 2,000 years until God moved supernaturally and brought forth a heavenly intervention called the Messianic movement. And that's what I want to affirm you as Messianic believers. You have been called for such a time as this to bear witness that Jewish people don't have to abandon their heritage because they believe in Yeshua as the You've got to see that. That wasn't there for almost 2,000 years. It's there now. And you are part of that movement. So we have to tell that lie to some who believe if you confess Jesus as the Messiah, you're no longer Jewish. Well, not according to our text. And you have to contend for that faith.
That's why you have trouble explaining this walk to your relatives. It's a wrestling match. You think they're going to believe it just so? No. They're content. They don't understand these things. So, there are Jews, children of Jacob, who believe Yeshua is the Messiah, and they are zealous for the Torah. Not to earn salvation, but because it's our covenant right. This is our loyalty to God. Because you have written your Torah upon my heart, I continue to be zealous for the Torah. Rather than Christendom that says, now Jew, you believe Jesus is the Messiah? Have a ham sandwich. You are set free from the law. Foolishness. You believe, and you're more zealous for the Torah. But look at the other side in verse 20. Verse 25. However, in regard to the Goyim, that's the Gentiles, those who are not of Jewish heritage, who have come to trust in Yeshua. So I want you to see the two groups. Yeshua believing Jews, and Yeshua believing nations, Gentiles. Who have come to trust in Yeshua, abandoning your idols. We all join in writing them a letter with our decision that they should abstain from what has been sacrificed to idols, from blood, from what is strangled, and from fornication. Notice what he said. The Jews are zealous for the whole Torah. The Gentiles are not given the whole Torah to be zealous for. It's an understanding again of revelation that needs to come. The whole Torah is fulfilled is that you love your neighbor as yourself. And I believe the new movement is coming. Because you see, it's here. If you go in Christianity, they say, believe in Jesus, abandon your Jewish heritage. If you go across to the Judaism, believe in the Torah and abandon Yeshua. But God is doing something new. That's why this movement is called the Messianic Jewish movement. Why? Because it began among the children of Israel who believed. And we have to contend even for the word Jewish. The one state of Israel, the Jewish state. And it's a fight done by the world, by cosmic powers of darkness, just to get the word Jewish come out. It's a fight. You're contending. And I smile and I say, God, remove the prejudice and bias. And let us see that you're bringing in a people. You're doing something new now. This is a movement that's new. It's called the Messianic movement. But I find in the Messianic movement there are two streams. There's the Messianic Jewish movement and there's the Hebrew roots. Oh my God. And there's a struggle. It's a fight. We have to come to the unity of the faith. But it's a struggle. But it's coming. But I believe that you here as Messianic believers, I affirm you. You are not like other believers. I'm not saying that to get you high and mighty. I'm saying understand your calling. You are called to be a stranger, as it were, yet no longer strangers. You are invited to the table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you're called to love the God of Israel and be citizens of the commonwealth of who? Israel. So if you're citizens of the commonwealth of Israel, it means that God is saying, you too are called to contend for vision and blessing. You too are called to contend against idolatry, against sexual immorality, against eating blood, against eating things strangled, against thinking that now you're Jewish because you're keeping Torah, against all those things. You have to contend against those lies and stand in your calling, proud and secure in your calling, remain in your calling, and love God. That's why you need a Messianic movement. And it's not for the faint-hearted. Can I say to you, this movement is not for the faint-hearted. I find people who come at this movement have gone through much at the hands of people in Judaism and much at the hands of the church. And unfortunately, much at the hands of people who are still immature in the Messianic movement. But I know when God called me back into this movement, He whispered to me, Joseph will close your eyes. What, God? Now, I knew what that text was. So I went back and read it. It was the account of Jacob coming into Egypt. And God told him, Joseph will close you. In other words, Jacob, you will die in Egypt. And when God whispered that to me, I knew. To whom else shall I go? You have the words of life. I will die in this movement. With all its challenges, with all the messiness of Messianic Judaism, I will die in this movement. I will not let go. I will wrestle with God. I will be discouraged. I will be abandoned by disciples. People will say all manner of things. I will be wounded, but I will not let go because I've seen the God of Israel. I've seen what he's doing, and I will not let go. My last scripture, 1 Peter 4. I want you to see this. Therefore, since the Messiah suffered physically by dying on that execution stake, arm yourselves with the same attitude. I want you to see that. Arm yourselves with the same resolve of the Master that you will do God's will regardless of the cost. Or to have followers who will do God's will regardless of the cost. For whoever has suffered physically is finished with sin. We will bear the limp to be finished with sin. Verse 2. With the result that he lives the rest of his earthly life no longer controlled by human desires, but by what? God's. What am I interceding for? What am I wrestling for? That myself and my brethren will no longer be controlled by the desires of the flesh, but by the will of God. And he writes in verse 3, for you have spent enough time already living the way the pagans want you to live. As if God is saying to us, Dayenu, it is enough. I will let you be a slave of sin for so many years. Now I want you to be a slave of righteousness. Excuse me. Enough in the flesh pots of Egypt. Better is one day in your house than 1,000 days somewhere else. I would rather be a doorkeeper at the threshold of my God than dwell in the tents of wickedness. For you have spent enough time already living the way the pagans want to live. Debauchery, lust, drunkenness, orgies, wild parties, forbidden idol worship. Does it sound familiar? And then go back to Galatians 5. You think it's just that? Envies, bitterness, holding a grudge, unforgiveness, not being quick to forgive. All those things are faces of evil. Evil has a face. And it shows up when we give place to the devil. But God said, enough. I want you to hear the Spirit of God saying to you, the Spirit of the loving God is saying to your soul, to your flesh, Dayenu, enough. I want you to hear it. This is the Spirit talking now. Dayenu. So your natural response is to have an outburst of anger. The Spirit says to you, Dayenu, enough. In other words, don't continue with that. Listen to the whisper. Let go. Don't get vexed. Don't be angry. Dayenu. You see why? And it's just not one Dayenu. You have to say it again and again and again until we get it. Until there comes a point when somebody real mashes your corn and you don't respond. That's how I know that you have been broken and the intercession has broken through into real time. But until then, I wrestle. Wrestle for sisters to get along. Wrestle for brothers to get along. Wrestle for God's will to be done in the very particular ways in which God wants us to have it done. So, arm yourself that you would rather suffer. Arm yourself with clarity. Know God's will. Arm yourself with identity. Your sons and daughters of the living God. You're called as a Jew. You're called as a Gentile. Arm yourself with identity. Arm yourself with holiness. Arm yourself to wrestle until the break. Can we all arise?